Let's get the volume right. Let's do that. There we go. We're reading from Marx And Engels reader. It's been a while. I was away. Had a very good time. Had to take a break. I promised you. Look behind me. Look behind me. All of my that's an African mask there. You can see it. There's it. There's it. There we go. Right there. Someone bought for me. And the big head is supposed to be smart. I still keep saying if I'm so smart, how do I end up in this situation? But that's another thing. Another thing for another time. I really think as a black man I should have just been irresponsible and went to prison or something. Because I would have been better off. Everybody I know that didn't study are better off than me, but like I said, that's another thing for another time. We're going to deal with Marx and Engels reader, and we'll see. Because one of the things is people keep talking about communists and everybody's a communist and everybody's a socialist. They need to stop. Biden is not a socialist, nowhere near it. Trump is not a socialist or communist, nowhere near it. AOC is not a socialist, nowhere near it. These people don't care about the society as it is. They care about keeping their careers in play. They care about getting elected to the next thing. All of them. All of them. The closest one you might have had was probably Bernie Sanders, but in the end, he was, again, someone who stayed and kept his career in place. Now, I don't blame him because people didn't show up for Bernie Sanders. You gotta show up. I mean, we talk about the South Carolina primary, and I have family in South Carolina. They're doing bad. Their health is bad. And someone was trying to offer you universal health care, or at least gonna fight for it. And the other person said he wasn't gonna fight for anything. Gonna keep you like you are. And y'all voted for that one because your congressman, who has been in a district for decades and is still one of the poorest districts. Y'all need to get off this Clyburn and John Lewis thing. John Lewis was a congressman for 40-something years, and his district is the poorest district. 40 years you didn't do anything for your people. Nothing, John Lewis. He's passed away. Nothing, Clyburn. Nothing for South Carolinians. What? To be fair to them, the people loved them, so I tell you, black folks, I don't know. Sometimes I think I'm an alien. Oh, let me, because I know that's making noise. Let me do that. Bourgeois and proletarians. The history of all hitherto existing society is the history of class struggles. Freeman and slave, patrician and plebeian, lord and serf, guildmaster and journeyman, in a word, oppressor and oppressed, stood in a constant opposition to one another, carried on an uninterrupted, now hidden, now open fight, a fight that each time ended, either in a revolutionary reconstitution of a society at large, or in the common ruin of the contending classes. In the early epochs of history, we find almost everywhere a complicated arrangement of society into various orders, a manifold gradation of social rank. In ancient Rome, we have patricians, knights, plebeians, slaves. In the Middle Ages, feudal lords, vassals, guildmasters, journeymen, apprentices, serfs. In almost all of these classes, again, subordination gradations. And the more you have, more gradations you have, the more levels there is. If you can do the psychological thing of um, keeping them invested in those levels in their titles, instead of seeing themselves as human beings that do a thing, they see themselves as a thing. Like, you're a human being who does blacksmith work. You're a human being who is a knight. They see themselves as knights, as blacksmith, as, you know what I mean? If you can keep that going and you have a lot, you can keep an empire going. When that starts to break down psychologically, um, then that's when you have problems. Like you're seeing now, you see a lot of people are looking at college graduates and be like, you don't really know anything. They're looking at professionals like, you don't really do anything. And I think in 2020 that exposed that when they showed who is actually an essential worker. Oh, the people who work in the supermarket, the people who work in the ambulance, the people who retail. Oh, those were supposed to be the lower end. And most of the professionals, the ones that didn't work from home, really a lot of administrators was like off work because they were useless. And that's why they begged to go back. Even with the stimulus, even if you give that class a UBI or a basic income, they will fight to keep the system like it is because they don't know how to function. They're not that bright. They're not that bright. Our epic, the epic of the bourgeois, possesses, however, this distinctive feature. It has simplified the class antagonisms. Society as a whole is more and more splitting up into two great hostile camps, into two great classes directly facing each other, bourgeois and proletariat. From the serfs of the Middle Ages sprang chattered burghers of the earliest towns. From these burgesses, the first elements of the bourgeois were developed. And remember, there was a report years ago that 60% of the people in the United States are at or below the poverty line. So now you have a 60-40 split in this country. And that 40% still is there. They kind of making it. The ones that are right up against us, doing well, but it's a grind. I know some of those people, and they do good, they do well, but it's a grind. Now, the magic question is how large does that bottom number have to get before it's chaos? Because we're basically on the verge where some big policy is going to have to be pushed. A lot of us that are on that bottom 60, we're on all kinds of subsidies. All kinds, whether it's housing vouchers or social services or food pantries. I go to food pantries and the lines are like, you wouldn't believe it. Or maybe you would believe it. Because I'm pretty sure you may be struggling as well. The discovery of America, the rounding of the Cape, opened up fresh ground for the rising bourgeois. The East Indian and Chinese markets, the colonialization of trade with the colonies, the increase in the means of exchange and in commodities generally gave to commerce, to navigation, to industry, an impulse never before known, and thereby to the revolutionary element in the tottering feudal society, a rapid development. The feudal society of industry, under which industrial production was monopolized by closed guilds, now no longer sufficed for the growing wants of the new markets. The manufacturing system took its place. The guild masters were pushed on one side by the manufacturing middle class. Division of labor between the different corporate guilds vanished in the face of division of labor in each single workshop. Meantime, the markets kept ever growing, the demand ever rising. Even manufacture no longer sufficed. Thereupon, Steam and machinery revolutionized the industrial production. The place of manufacture was taken by the giant modern industry, the place of the industrial middle class by the industrial millionaires, the leaders of the whole industrial armies, the modern bourgeois. So, and machinery has done it even today. Most of the times when I'm dealing with something, I prefer to use the machine. I prefer to use self checkouts in the supermarket, and it's not because I'm stealing anything. I never do that. It's because the savagery in people has gotten so bad that you can't deal with people. If I'm online and I'm at a register, that's why I hate stores with no self checkout. The person behind me is on top of me. So I never understand. And it's gotten so bad in this year that even when I give people personal space, the person behind me is upset that I'm giving the person personal space. Not only that they're on me, they're getting upset. Why do you have to give them personal space? That's how savage got. They're saying, why aren't you more savage? What's wrong with you? This is what we're doing. This is how we're dealing. People spitting on the street, blowing their nose on the street. I've said it. It's a savage place out there. So I would always rather just go to the self checkouts. You have your space. You can ring up the stuff, and then there's a person who helps. It's usually one person for the supermarket I go to over here is like four self checkouts. But you go to Target, there's like 10 self checkouts, and there's one person to help instead of having 10 cashiers. So and I love it. I just love the self checkout. It's just always so much better. And I used to have problems looking up food like produce and things, but I got better at it, and it's fine. It's fine. So machines are replacing people in a lot of things, in a lot of jobs. And I think people don't agree with me. People say, Tim, you off. I think that they're going to have, well, they don't have to, but if you're going to have anything, any kind of cohesion in this society, anything that resembles civilization, you're going to have to implement something like a basic income or a stimulus or bulk up the child tax credit. It's going to have to be something big to end child poverty again. But it might not be enough. I mean, you're going to have to do that and something else. You're going to have to do something like a large federal housing program, which hasn't done since the 1970s. And I don't think they're going to go that route. I think it'll be cheaper just to give us the basic income, because paying for these programs is very expensive. And again, the people who administer these programs are, I'm dealing with a couple of them now. There's some of them, I don't know. I don't want to say they're incompetent. It's not always that. Sometimes it's ethnic groups in these positions helping other people from their group. I'm in a position now where I know they just don't want to help me. And they're helping people from their other immigrants from their place. I know it. I know that's what's happening, because I'm looking at the names of the people and I'm looking at who's getting apartments around me. And this is a housing voucher thing. So you got to say, well, wait a minute. Everyone that looks like me, no surprise, has to wait a year. Meanwhile, all the people moving in these places that we're trying to get into are just in. So, I mean, and surprise, surprise, they're from the same group. Coincidence, I guess. But yeah, it's an interesting time. We'll see what happens. I didn't think I would live to see 2020, so we'll see. The people who disagree with me may be right. They may drag this thing out and figure if they live behind walls, the wealthy live behind walls or live in neighborhoods where they use security and police officers to wall themselves, probably private security to wall themselves away from everyone else. But that's such a risky thing to be surrounded. So just imagine you have 30% of your citizens in every place, surrounded by 70% of the rest of us. How would you keep us out all day, 24 hours a day? And how would you move about the rest of your town and city? I guess you would, everything would be in the area where you are. So in New York City, you wouldn't go to Broadway anymore, or maybe you would. Maybe you would just lock off New York City, Manhattan, that area, all the museums and all the stuff, and make it difficult for us to get in Manhattan so that the wealthy can enjoy the nicer things. Maybe in Brooklyn you lock off BAM and the Barclays in that area. Maybe that's what you do so that the wealthy can enjoy their shows and their sports and their things, and push the rest of us around you. Maybe that's the plan. I mean, that's what actually happens now. So maybe that's the way they're gonna keep going with this thing. But I don't know. It's just the how are you gonna keep the violence out? 70%, 60 to 70%, and I'm sure the number will keep rising because the wealthy just keep making more money, and the rest of us just keep struggling to make anything. So we'll see. We'll see what the number is. We'll see what happens. We'll see if they can keep the psychological trick up to keep us in the state that we're in. Or maybe our devices are enough. Maybe just keeping us engaged in the devices are enough to keep us calm, to pacify us. We'll see in the next year. I think we'll see in the next year or two which one's which. Anyway, support the websites. My new website is up. I'm putting more stuff on it all the day, conversationcenter.org. I'm going to start looking for grants. I have a program up there. I have a second program I'm going to put up there. Try to raise some funds. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. Until next time, take care of yourselves. Be safe. If you're in the heat waves, try to stay cool. Whatever climate change you're going through, just try to stay safe as possible. And maybe we can get enough of us together to really make a push and change, or else we're gonna have to respond to nature itself. Take care, be safe.